Thank you all for joining us today for the second webinar of the webinar series Youth IGF India. And we'll be starting now, but meanwhile, the other participants can join just for the sake of time. I don't want to wait anymore. So the topic for today's webinar is security on and off the internet. And we have Mr. Vinayak Godse, who is the Vice President of DSCI, joining us today to enlighten us on the topic for today's webinar, which is security on and off the internet. So, Data Security Council of India is a not for profit industry body on data protection in India. It is set up by NASSCOM, committed to making cyberspace safe, secure, and trusted by establishing the best practices, standards, and initiatives in cybersecurity and privacy. DSCI engages with the governments and their agencies, regulators, industry sectors, associations, and think tanks for policy advocacy, thought leaderships, capacity buildings, and outreach activities. We are very glad to have Vinayak sir with us today, and sir, it's an absolute honor to have us with us. Meanwhile, I would also like to give some instructions. So, one of our volunteers will be sharing the questionnaire shortly. So, if you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to jot down those at the questionnaire or in the chat box. We'll take care of them. We'll have a Q&A session towards the end where we'll be taking up those questions. And with this, I would like to invite Vinayak sir to enlighten us on the subject. Over to you, Vinayak sir. Vinayak sir, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Parinita. It's my pleasure to be here on the forum that you had set up and had been coordinating to talk about the subject security on and off internet, and that too in the current context where security is becoming very integral point of a discussion, be it a person, be it a society, or be it businesses, or be it economy, national aspects, and even global health of global health of cyberspace. So what I'll cover in my presentation is briefly the topics that I will be covering in another 30-40 minutes, and after that I think I would like to engage and take a questions and even have a dialogue on some of those things that I would be talking in this presentation. So I hope this presentation is visible. Everybody is able to see the presentation.
Yes, we can see your presentation.
Yeah. So, Data Security Council of India is a think tank and industry body set up by NASSCOM. And NASSCOM set up this as an independent company, not-for-profit company, to look at the cybersecurity and privacy initiative in the country. So we look at the larger policy or strategy issues in cybersecurity in the country, closely work with the national security machineries of the country on one hand, work with some of the line ministries which are engaged in a policy making in cybersecurity and privacy space. And on the other hand, we work with industry. So we have membership based all across industry vertical, right from banks, telecom, manufacturing, oil energy sector, nowadays the pharmaceutical, health, and even aviation sector. So these kind of different sectors that we saw on the cybersecurity and privacy initiative, apart from the technology industry, which is the almost $170 billion industry in the country at this point of time. So we have seen so if you look at the way the cyberspace is evolving, it is impacting and transforming the way we do personal transaction or the or the internet. So, for example, until now we had started doing the personal transaction over the internet, but now the it is entirely transforming and entirely bringing so a lot of new ideas and new platforms and products and services, which is taking us into entire new paradigm. So our personal life, our personal transactions are increasingly getting digitized in a very different way. The society itself, because the way the network connects society, brings people from different groups together, and even helps them to extend or expand their network. The society itself is getting transformed because of the internet and the new age technology, which are coming largely through this networking technology. Likewise, the digitization as a trend, which is also now uh, driving even very complex sector like oil energy, because we have the membership base in oil energy sector, and we get astonished to see the kind of digitization plan that these sectors are making, and also aspiring as well. So the personal, social, and business transactions are getting in, getting entirely transformed to the digital way. Apart from that, a lot of levers of economy now, even the critical sector in the country, critical sector are the one who has a lot of close knit tie-up with a national security and capability. So a lot of those economic and critical sector the fortune and the plans are increasingly now getting tied up or need to the digitization process, and there are a lot of calls which has been made to look at the digital quotient and of the economy. In fact, as a country, we have been making plan out of this $5 trillion Indian economy. We are talking about $1 trillion as a digital economy. And then the national fortune and national security and the overall strategy that countries have been laying down. Until now, we had been seeing a lot of different strategies and a lot of different way the country had been taking stance in terms of how they have been looking at managing and governing the ecosystem. Digital and data becoming very important part of any nation's trying to govern their society. So, and then the last one is the all this is connected by internet. So, the global health of the cyberspace becomes an important part of global cyberspace becomes an important part. So, when we talk about security, we talk at an individual, societal, business transaction level, economic level, national level, and even at a global cyberspace level as well. And when we talk about deliberate on security and privacy, we try to look at all of these aspects, all of these levels in the discussion. So my talk will be largely talking about the cybersecurity space, although I know in country like India, the data privacy discussion is quite now capturing the attention, because the draft privacy bill had been introduced, had been published by the government of India, and will likely get tabled in the parliament in coming winter session. But for the topic today's discussion, I will largely focusing on a cybersecurity discussion. So what we know, simplistic understanding of cybersecurity is we largely talk about three concept when we talk about security: the confidentiality, the integrity, and ability. So they call it as a three triads of security. This has been very conventional understanding of cybersecurity, but this understanding nowadays, because of the way things are evolving, the kind of attacks are coming to the organizations and kind of abilities that is getting challenged, and the way they are getting entrenched in the organizational ecosystem, and the kind of digitizations are happening, and entire business processes are increasingly dependent on the digitization. So this simple understanding in three triad of security, like mentioned in this particular slide, is now increasingly getting change and discuss in the context of various different concepts. So when you talk about security, we talk about protection, and protection is an important attribute, and there are a lot of investments that are being made at a different level, at an individual level, to societal level, at a business level, to products level, to the even national level. Also, there are a lot of efforts that are being put and invested in creating that uh, architecture which can help us to protect ourselves from the onslaught of all of those attacks coming in a very scalable and complex way. Uh, um, the defense, because we may really have an architecture and capabilities to protect ourselves, but there may be a possibility that there are n number of, and when people say that even systems are online, they are connected to internet, millions of attempts would be coming on to you, and these attacks, there could be millions possibility, and some of those possibilities may get realized, and that's what the attempt of most of the attack ecosystem is. So they have to succeed they have to succeed out of millions times, they have to succeed once, whereas our defense has to succeed in millions time. So that's the very unequal equations that basically we are standing into, and the laying down the defense to take care of all of those possibilities which could potentially lead to problem. So that becomes an important articulation of security. Security also try to deter. For example, there are possibilities, and the possibilities can be exploited. So security tries to focus on those exploitation and try to lay down a structure, lay down a kind of a controls to deter any attempt, accidental as well as the motivated attempt, which is intended to the which can potentially compromise the security. Security also, nowadays people talk about, okay, no matter how much you prepare, there is still some attack will happen, some exploitations will be happening. So now security increasingly talks about how can I remove my exposure, how can I my organization can, although the digitization push is increasingly making me more and more open, but can I do something to limit my exposure to the attack ecosystem? So that's the language that security talks about. We know how much you prepare, how much investment that you make, the detection that there is a possibility of exploitation would be there. Your ability to detect becomes an important part. So that's the new language that security has been looking at. For detection, very continuous monitoring is required, and no matter, and if there's something goes wrong, your ability to respond in timely manner becomes an important part. And then when while responding, you are focusing on containing damage that may be kinetic one, that may be a financial loss one, that could be a reputational loss as well. Nowadays, security also talks about, because there are n number of players which are now increasingly looking at how the security is being functioning in the organizational ecosystem. For example, every country has this national security coordination mechanism, and they look at what is happening in the country about security preparedness level. For example, there is a one oil energy company in one which could have got compromised. So it would definitely compromise the interest of a particular individual organization, but it may probably compromise the national security interest as well. So this external ecosystem try to put a lot of those kind of obligation to report those kinds of conduct incidents. So the reporting becomes an important attribute of security. Investigation is now increasingly becoming important part, and damage that could happen or you may get exploited. So recovery from those exploitation becomes an important part. So these are new attributes, new words that security is getting basically articulated, and this discussion about CIA is now increasingly discussing these kind of words, uh, and security has to look at all these attacks, exposure, compromises, disruption, exploitation, leakages, or stealing attempts that may happen. So this articulation of security is an important part, and we try to go more into nuances and these particular words which has been written here through throughout the actions, basically different actions, and those actions are very important actions that organizations are now taking to organize their security. There's another interesting discussion which are happening at this point of time is, what do you mean by information security and what do you mean by cyber security? I'm trying to create clear a kind of develop a kind of a distinction between these two terms. So we all know that in information security ecosystem, largely organization talks about protection of their information. They talk about their infrastructure protection. They talk about protecting their business interest. So actions are largely on a deterrence, on a detection, on a defense, and conforming to some kind of a practices or standard. So they largely look at the processes, audit, documentation, and compliance part. Whereas the last 3 4 years, the cybersecurity is a term which has evolved quite significantly, and that has been most of the security discussion nowadays are discussed in the context of cybersecurity. So, what do you mean by cybersecurity? The cybersecurity, the drivers are not only intrinsic driver; they are extrinsic as well. For example, to maintain the health of global cyberspace, there are expectations that are imposed by different multilateral or multi-stakeholder institutions in terms of how countries should be managing its cyberspace. National security may put some kind of limitations on the organization way they manage their security. The consumer may like to put their expectation may way the organizations are looking at the security. There are a lot of actors which are coming in this place, which are state and non-state actor as well. Regulators also take security into a lot of consideration, and there are a lot of international affairs that govern where the internet is moving. So the when we talk about a lot of this driver, we talk largely in the context of cybersecurity. So that's why the action here in case of cybersecurity is protecting yourself, but it's also looking at the many other external drivers as well. So threat intelligence, detection, investigation, responding, limiting damage, recovering becomes an important part, and focus is largely on a threat, largely on operation, largely on the governance. So these distinctions are very important distinctions. So and they also tells us to develop a distinct kind of a verbiages. The expectation in terms of security, information security, and cyber securities are different. The stakeholders are different. The forces which are driving them are different, and the sort of actions required also could be a different. And the demonstration, largely in the context of information security, is a demonstration for your own protection of interest. Whereas in cybersecurity phase, the expectation demonstration are yes, you have to protect your interest, but also you have to probably satisfy a lot of those external drivers that do come into picture. So this is how the different external stakeholder or drivers that do come and that do influence the way a particular organization would be behaving in cybersecurity or information security space. So this distinction is very important to understand because all of those discussion happening at aggregate level, and I think your forum largely looks at the discussion at aggregate level. So the cybersecurity ecosystem, which tries to put a mandate, tries to put incentives, tries to put a lot of those kind of a requirement. In a way, it also try to govern the cyberspace or internet space or internet ecosystem as well. So this is an important distinction to understand. And nowadays we talk about digitization, and honestly, when we talk about digitization, there's not much very much clarity there in terms of comprehending the concept of digitization. I'm trying to simplify that by taking some of those examples. So when we talk about digitization, what we talk about technologies, right? So, and when I talk about technology, I talk about the technologies which are helping you to collect more and more data, technologies which are helping you to process more and more data, or capabilities basically which are helping you to process more and more data. For example, I will talk about it now in the next slide probably. Your mobile now comes with 7 nanometers chip, right? And that phenomenally increases the ability to process information at mobile device level. So this ability to process data is increasingly coming into aid, and that is coming to device level as well, where end consumer citizen can use it. Another important part in technology side, if you look at a lot of context for people, of citizens or customers are getting recorded, collected, and processed. It's one of the important things which is happening. The informations are managed intuitively for you and your requirement. The machines are understanding human better. There is a merging of personal, social, and commercial technology, and people are trying to find different gamification, augmentation way to provide a good consumer service, provide a different value to the organization. So these are the technological evolutions are happening. But if you look at these evaluations, uh, the business models are also now evolving based on the how technology is moving. So it is going more intuitively personal. It is trying to bring more and more context and integrate those contexts. It is trying to bring a lot of data enriched products and services. Businesses are increasingly designing for mobility, commute, and convenience of a consumer. Devices and things are taking part in the processing of the transaction. A lot of interfaces, third parties, APIs are getting now thrown, and a lot of external ecosystem is now joining in transaction processing ecosystem. The services are decomposed into a lot of microservices and segmented services. So these are business evolutions and models that we are seeing where it is coming. And then apart from that, it's a entire external extension of a business ecosystem is happening because of the globalization, because of the hyper specialization, the extreme sourcing that we are seeing, and that's why the India's IT industry is growing quite significantly higher. And then we are also seeing the devices that we buy. For example, any mobile device that we have. So it may have the components from 40 to 50 different countries. So the supply chain of any IT system or electronic system is increasingly becoming complex. So that's what the ecosystem that we are seeing, and all that it basically entails is bringing data from various different sources, which also entails the increasing quantum and complexity of data, finding different new use cases and application of data, and extreme sharing of a data that is also a new reality, and which also is tending to uh, significant level of flow of data between countries, within the country and outside the country as well. So these are three, four things which define the digitization. But the digitization can be very simplified, simply defined into three different terms. So we all do this technology, business model, and all of this kind of ecosystem expansion largely for these three things, which I'm trying to put it here. So one part of digitization, or when you do digitization, means you do improve the experience of consumer. So customer experience improvement is an important driver, and all of this which is happening to us, all the applications coming to us, all the services are getting digitally delivered to us. So improving of your experience as an end consumer is a very important driver for digitization. Digitization is also for enhancing internal productivity. You automate, there is robotic process automation, workflow automation. There's so many different ways that you can improve the productivity of executing a particular transaction. So digitization is also enhancing the internal productivity. And digitization is also adding value to new possibilities. For example, if my location data is available to my bank, and then bank can design a particular product to serve me when I'm traveling or when I'm commuting, right? If I'm coming from here to Kolkata, the systems knows about my being in Kolkata, so they try to probably send me something which can be useful for me, or probably could be asking or lucrating me to probably anything that I can buy there in Kolkata. So this such kind of possibilities are possible because of our data. So digitization is experience, productivity, and possibility. So an entire technology ecosystem is being evolved for this one. So I'm just trying to put up a something which talks about what are those technologies and which are really making this transition possible. So we all know IoT. We have been talking about all everything will be digital thing. So there is something called as a digital twin. So any product that we would be using from now would have its own digital twin, and this digital twin will be talking to internet, looking at the data, probably improving the experience that you are working on. So this digital twin ecosystem for each and every product, be it a table, be it a fan, be it a fridge. So that is what the entire ecosystem is doing, and billions of devices of things will be connected to internet going forward. And then on the top of it, the mobility technologies are making it possible that these devices are connected and these endpoints are different form factor endpoints are basically connected to internet. So that's the another important part of a technology evolution. And as we know that all of these devices, systems will be throwing a lot of data, and this data can be read well, can be analyzed well. So machine learning AI technologies can look at different use cases, and these use cases can be used or can be mapped against a data set, and those data set can serve you to solve those use cases. These use cases could be, again, improving the consumer experience, again to improve the productivity, again to create new possibilities for the organization. So the machine learning and AI is largely helping you to improve the experience, improve the productivity, and creating new possibilities. And there are a lot of technology evolutions, and every business is now talking about how they will adopt the machine learning and AI. Another important evolution which we are seeing is hardware and semiconductor. As I just some time back talked about, even now your mobile has 7 nanometer chip, right? So all these Samsung Note Plus or Huawei some devices which talks about the processor that is there in your mobile has a 7 nanometer chip which can do billions of transactions per second, and the ability of mobile devices significantly rising. And then entire new AI. So AI is a tremendous amount of data, and the data need to be processed in a fractions of seconds. So there are specific hardware which are being developed to process data, and there are AI chips which are coming, and those are also there in some of the mobile ecosystem. So this evolutions in hardware semiconductor technology is also fueling a lot the entire scheme of a data enterprise that I just talked in a previous slide. Another important thing which is happening is the blockchain ecosystem. So this is idea, architectural idea to turn around the table of the way the information will be processed. It talks about more decentralization of processing of information. It talks about using the resources located all across the world and make them use or get them used for a processing a particular transaction. And it also challenges the perimeterized, centralized processing idea. And there are a lot of debates which are happening around this technology. Then the cloud computing is a transforming way the organizations or individual would be storing its data, using the capabilities, or even doing the processing, or even getting served as well in some of those areas. So cloud uh, is one part of the cloud is helping you do with all the capability. The data can be stored centrally, but one of the important benefits or contributions cloud is making is it is bringing down the cost of entry for any new ideas to come into the reality. So any new innovator, any person, any youth which want to do have its own idea and want to really work on those ideas, the cloud significantly reduces the cost of entering into the digital business. So that's another important part that cloud computing plays. Robotics and drone technologies are increasingly consuming a lot of those MLAI kind of abilities, and they themselves have been adding a lot of value to the cyber technology capabilities in for businesses, for individual, and for the nations as well. Uh, then AR/VR technologies, so augmentation and creating virtual reality had been also will be transforming the way the transactions are carried out, or where the way the we will be interacting with the system. Uh, then locations and presence technology, as we all use the GPS application, but there's so many different applications are now increasingly coming in location and presence technology. Um, and the last one, which I want to talk, especially mention here, is a material science, which is evolving at this point of time. Increasingly, we are realizing that semiconductors would be finding it difficult to probably satisfy the processing requirement of coming decades. And now people have started looking at going beyond semiconductors. So there's something called as a two-dimensional material which is coming in. There's some material called graphene, phosphorine, borapine. So such kind of materials are uh, called the two-dimensional mud trail, and they would be uh, phenomenally increase the way the processing will be done at the heart of the computer ecosystem, and they will be also changing the speed of the computing quite significantly. So this is what the technology is driving, and when you are looking at this way the technology is driving, and then now we need to look at what what is the cyberspace and how this technology and this cyberspace is evolving, and what kind of issues that it would get uh, it will create for the cybersecurity, it will create for us as an individual, and what are those drivers basically which are shaping the discussion of security and privacy all across the globe. So one of the important thing that we are looking and we just talked about is digitization is definitely an important driver, and everywhere it is touching up recording, the transaction, the process, the workflow, the operations, the products and things. So digitization is driving all of that together, and that is a key thing that we have been looking at. Then the device and connectivity, the endpoints, the mobile, the IoT, the always on, the high speed connectivity which is coming in. So that distinguishes the current age cyberspace. I'm just trying to comprehend all of the discussion of cyberspace in this particular slide. One of the important thing which is happening now, gradually talking about the cybersecurity issues, is the uh, way the attack ecosystem or attackers have been using all of these capabilities available to them. They are increasingly becoming more innovative. A lot of zero-day attacks which are coming in, the vectors that are being used to exploit the ecosystem is a lot of experimentation happening on that one. They're very flexible, and these attack ecosystems are increasingly becoming multi-geography operations. This is something that we are seeing in attack ecosystem. There are a lot of cohort operations that are running parallel all across the globe, and these operations are covered because of the basic structure of internet, and aggregation is very difficult at this point of time. There are a lot of command and control operations that are there. There are a lot of secure connections which are being made. So there are some organizations which are able to unveil what is happening in terms of IT system, but increasingly most of the actors are investing to set up these operations all across the globe. We are also looking at trend of it's not only the a particular attacker setting up a kind of a infrastructure or looking at tools basically or trying to do the operation. It's also now very easy to distribute this attack ecosystem, provide the access to tool, and the execution can be very simplified. Very a simple person or a person with not much digital literacy can be deployed to carry those attacks, and this is in a way becoming a kind of a services industry in some part of the globe. So these are something that we are seeing in cybersecurity space. All this technology I just mentioned about are exposing organization increasingly. There are a lot of third parties coming in, the APIs, the innovation, startups coming in. So in a way, it is complete, making the global supply chain very, very complex. A lot of the external providers, the vendors and MSs coming into picture, multiple hopes that particular transaction cross, and the cloud is also adding a lot of possibilities of exposure and extension. We are also seeing different actors. Until now, it was a scripted days, but actors which are organized, and they come from the state and non-state as well. We are seeing so once you connect the internet and one system gets connected to the internet, it has vulnerability. So ability to identify that vulnerability and exploit. So the time required for that is significantly reducing down, and hardly in a minute's time people would able to identify a particular system is vulnerable, and probably they would also able to exploit. So that's the speed that we are seeing in the attack ecosystem. They're finding it very easy because of the email connectivity, website, different files available on internet, the social engineering techniques that they are using for this one, the digital products which are getting connected, the device is getting connected, vendor partner ecosystem is increasingly adding value to the organization. So all of those provides very interesting way for the attackers to exploit. The quantum and complexity of information that all of us are collecting, gathering, and downloading and transferring. So they provide a lot of opportunities for attacker to focus their attention to. And this entire attack ecosystem is very persistent, insidious, and threatening. Increasingly, possibility of kinetic impact from a security attack is now not uh, ruled out. Financial loss had been increasingly the real stories are coming for that. Now devices, IoT ecosystem that are coming into the day-to-day life, sometimes they may lead to the threatening of the public order, and large-scale disruption is also possible. And there are some cases that we are seeing happening all across the globe. So this particular slide comprehends the way technology is evolving and comprehend what is the distinctness of the cyberspace from the cybersecurity perspective. And this is something a larger comprehension as a Data Security Council of India. We do try to engage people on these various matters. So, so now when it is there, so we need to understand because at a IGF level and your level, you must be trying to see what are those thing which is happening and what are those stakeholders that basically that do come into the picture when we are to govern the cyberspace for the better security and better privacy. So so the type of the bodies that do come into picture when we talk about the governance of cybersecurity are like this. For example, uh, when you there are very cybersecurity specific bodies like there is an emergency response team in India which looks at the computer emergency incident management. There is a critical infrastructure protection authority which is called as NCIPC, which is there in India. And I'm sure this kind of a structure would be there in other countries as well. And there is a now National Cybersecurity Coordinator's Office, which tries to coordinate all the cybersecurity efforts that is coming in the country and try to evolve strategies for that one. So these are dedicated cybersecurity agencies that do come into picture when countries trying to evolve a mechanism for governing the cyberspace for cybersecurity. The different ministries like Ministry of IT, the Department of Telecommunication, the Commerce Ministry, they are largely coming for the transfer of data from country to country and security privacy initiative involved into that. Apart from the cybersecurity, national security agencies like a National Security Council Secretariat, Ministry of External Affairs, different security agencies that do come into picture when you talk about the governance of cyberspace. The law enforcement bodies, because cyber crime is an important part of discussion, they come into picture. Then different regulators, sector regulators now are also increasingly taking cybersecurity on their agenda. And then this is a government structure on stakeholder side, academic institutions, different think tanks, different bodies like ICANN, IGF, different government across the globe, the different industry bodies. Basically, they try to get into this kind of discussion and try to influence the dialogue which is coming in the cybersecurity space. So so this governance, cooperation, and trust in cybersecurity space. So all of these stakeholders basically they engage. They engage into devising strategy and policy, devising law for the cyberspace, creating incentives and mandates for basically investment into cybersecurity space. They would create obligations and liabilities to make organization conform to a particular cybersecurity requirement, and they also contribute to larger global cybersecurity norms. This was something instrument I'm talking about. And then those instrument largely talks about investigation requirement or international industry standard. They may talk about data transfer, data cooperation kind of instrument. They may look at the collaboration across the border, or they may talk about the trust mechanisms or agents that will be required to be created. So, so the different stakeholder at a particular country and at a national level and international level, so they had been grappling with this subject, and the subject is increasingly becoming difficult subject to manage the governance at a global level as well, inter relation, inter country relation, or at a multilateral level as well. So this ecosystem, and I'm sure every country would have such kind of ecosystem in their place, and they may be also grappling with the strategy, policy, law, the different liabilities that may be created, and they may be engaged into this kind of a standard making, data sharing, the the collaboration and creating a kind of trust agent to ensure that the things are in order in cyber space. So I'm just trying to put out some areas that usually the countries try to look at when they talk about cybersecurity. So they try to define the entities, regulatory measure. They try to define the countermeasures on cybercrime. They try to create a uh, kind of a procedural acknowledgement to digital evidence, create a regulatory infrastructure, provide access to investigation. They may be looking at obligation to retain information. The country may be looking at regulating content or blocking public access. Country may be looking at the interception and monitoring of our transactions and communication. But they may have the civil procedure and criminal code. So these are things that do largely get debated and deliberated by the countries and different geographies to make sure that the cyberspace in their particular boundaries, although there is no physical boundary as such, uh, behaves sensibly, is healthy, and doesn't really allow criminal activities. So that is how a legal framework for cybersecurity is being evolved. I believe this is my probably the last slide, which talks about this discussion. When we talk about this discussion at a global level, at a B2B or regional or multilateral level, so we largely talk about three, four ideas basically. When we talk about the governance of the global cyberspace for the better security and privacy, we largely grappling with the three or four different issues and problems. One is the militarization of cyberspace, and it's a very difficult era at this point of time where a lot of state, non-state actors have been using cyberspace for a very strategic advantage and largely to set up the offensive operations in cybersecurity space. Militarization and weaponization of cyberspace is a definitely big concern for all of us, and you are one of the important stakeholder. Probably should be worried about this particular phenomena which is coming all across the globe. The economic problem of economic issues, especially in the cybercrime, is largely sorted out in a boundary. Although the enforcement and prosecution level is a difficult problem, but at least the cooperation level, country to country cooperation level, largely this is a problem which can be solved easily. But when it comes to content, for example, a particular content needs to be blocked or content needs to be screened, censored. So this is a largely the debate, and different societies behave differently when we talk about content. There are definitely some content which is which has some kind of a agreement all across the globe with this content can't be there on internet. Child pornography is one of the important type of the content. But apart from that, every country and every culture has its own way of looking at the content. And that is how the larger debate and exchanges are happening. And I'm not sure whether there will be any agreement between the countries at a bilateral level, at a regional level, and multilateral level on a content regulation. And nowadays, data is coming as a very important uh, kind of a area where a lot of debate deliberations are happening between the countries and at an international, multilateral, multi-stakeholder uh, uh, institutional level as well. So what I'm trying to say here is that all of these topics get discussed at a bilateral level, and there are a lot of efforts that are being put with different countries. And I know India-US cyber dialogue or cert-to-cert cooperation or kind of an agreement that happens between two countries can come into largely bilateral level. But there are a lot of regional level discussion of cybersecurity do happen at a European level. We are doing quite a work, significant work in a Shanghai Cooperation Organization level, where recently India become a member of that. There are a lot of ministerial discussion happen at Asian level. Apart from regional level, multilateral like UN Government Group of Exploration, the groups like G7 or G20. So they have been increasingly taking cybersecurity on their basically agenda. And apart from that agenda, the multi-stakeholder organizations like IGF, GFC, or there are a lot of commission and the dialogues which are happening, which are largely tracked to a multi-stakeholder dialogue, which take into discussion and they try to influence the track one diplomacy. Apart from that, every government, we are seeing now this important trend is that governments are now trying to see the external engagement in cybersecurity in a very structured manner. For example, if I just look at in US, they have a Cyber Diplomacy Act. So this is one way that they look at how to engage externally with other countries on cyber security matter. Australia has a larger international cyber security engagement strategy. Or in case of India, there is a cyber diplomacy division which has been set up under Ministry of External Affairs, and that division takes care of a lot of those engagement of a country in a bilateral, regional, and multilateral engagement. Apart from those kind of interaction, there are some institutions at an international level. For example, this first, which is largely try to bring the corporates themselves together and try to create a response to large scale attack. Or if there is a phishing attacks which are happening, this anti-phishing working group, which is also a kind of international collaboration to take down the phishing site and website which are mushrooming to challenge the legitimate businesses basically. The devices that comes into the network and we always have worry about a particular device coming from a particular geography and that's coming into network, and that may create an issue for the cybersecurity. So what can we do for that one? So certification mechanism for devices coming into the IT ecosystem. So there's a common data ecosystem which has been set up for this one. So this slide concludes the discussion about how this is evolving, how it is driving discussion, what is happening in digitization space, how all of that creates a kind of a space, public policy space to govern the cyberspace and govern the security and privacy space, and then how how individual countries are responding to that, what kind of legal framework which is coming in. I mean, all this discussion go to very larger aggregate international platform. So these are something that we have been seeing happening at a bilateral, regional, multilateral level. We are seeing major push towards bilateral and multilateral institutions probably should be doing many more things, but people are now increasingly going to country or regional level kind of deliberations. And there are a lot of institutional activity which are coming all across globe in this particular space at a national level and international level as well. So this is how what I wanted to cover in my presentation. And now we have 10-15 minutes with us. If there is any question or any observation, I will be happy to respond.
Vinayak sir, thank you so much for that insightful talk. I very much agree with what you said about a person doesn't have to be an expert in coding for hacking the space. So, seeing this series called Reboot the Guardian Code, and that's where humans enter into the cyberspace. And I pretty much observed all of what you said there. So, yes, kudos to that. And we also an announcement. We have the questionnaire, and I see that Abhishek has put up some questions. So, Abhishek, would you like to speak for yourself?
Hello.
Yes, Abhishek, we can hear you.
Eh, Yeah, good morning. Good morning, sir. So I wanted to ask, see, data security and information security is a big issue. So apart from the companies and all security companies' responsibility, how can we contribute to it? Like, how can we as individuals and youth IGF uh, let people know about it and provide information to them? Because in my community and in my circle, I see not many people know about it, and they are prone to security attacks and payment issues and all.
Yeah, so there are 3-4 way I can say that youth across globe and in India can contribute to this. So one definitely the uh, kind of digital transitions are happening, the transactions are increasingly design wise, it's getting very simple for people to use. But underneath that design, there are a lot of complex ecosystem applications and enterprises that are coming into picture. So awareness is a definitely an important part, because when we talk about security, we talk about the public process technology. The process and technology can take care a lot, but people's awareness is very important. If you're doing a digital payment transaction, so there's some do's and don'ts, right? So that needs to be conveyed very well. We as a Data Security Council of India has one digital payment security campaign, and we have created a lot of material, a lot of videos, a lot of engaging and interacting kind of creatives which can be taken to the public. And not only we, but all across India, there are a lot of institutions which have been doing this one. So you can definitely contribute in uh, making people aware, and there are various different tools are available to you through your social media handles, to the way you connect to different applications. So you can definitely contribute in awareness piece. But beyond awareness, basically, second important part is, even if you are not, you may be doing awareness, but another important part is understanding level. You need to invest your time quite significantly, understanding how things are evolving, understanding what kind of security privacy debates are coming, and comprehending them well, to probably drive the discussion in this particular space. And because this particular space is now increasingly becoming getting governed, there are policies which are getting written, there are laws which are getting written, and people's participation in this policy making, law making is a very important contribution that you can make. So one is the investing time to understand this better, understanding the principles of the democratic value system better, understanding the principles of liberal value system better, and see how they are getting shaped in the dialogue in policy making which is happening. So active understanding and participation to policy making and law making is another important level that you contribution you can make. The third contribution that you can always make is probably uh, you have these forums basically, or in your local geography where you have been working, a community that you have been talking about, taking this understanding uh, uh, of the policy. One of my worries until now, the larger policies, the right discussion of the human rights and discussion about the public order was into very physical space, and understanding and comprehending them becomes that is not very difficult and heavy cognitive work. But moment we are coming to cyberspace, the discussion about the all of these modern value system that we talk about is very com- complex, and most important, it's very different discussion altogether. Different verbages needs to be looked at, different concepts need to be looked at. So how do you make the society think critically about the new space of cyberspace which is coming in, which is asking them to get all of their, for example, there are 21 different part of lives that can be now uh, transacted online. So if that is happening, so how can you make, for example, somebody nowadays mostly the marriage ecosystem that people have been increasingly using the marriage platform for finding a partner, like partner. But there are a lot of issues in those kind of platform. So which is there in a physical space as well, but in a digital platform, the issues are very different issues. So how do you make society understand, appreciate uh, the rights, the system, the order that we see in a physical space, and then make them understand about their right, make them aware about how things are evolving there. So that is a third contribution that you can make, which I can share at this point of time.
Thank you, sir. One more thing I wanted to ask, during this webinar itself, I have received like several text message of phishing and scams. So
Hmm.
I'm part of some Facebook groups where people are selling database of people. like they are selling like which people shop online, which people use medical insurance. So like I don't share my number online anywhere, and I get like these messages every now and then. So how can we stop this, or where can we get this done?
So that's what I didn't really touch on the privacy because that's a different altogether discussion. Uh, so the privacy legislative arrangement in different countries and many countries have been trying to do that quite aggressively now. And in India, as I talked about, we are also published our draft privacy bill, where one of the important part of the privacy requirement is now the subject uh, access requirement, and it talks about some of the principle like consent, it's talk concept like a choice, talk a concept like a right to be forgotten, right to object, right to withdraw. So such constituted legally, if you are enjoying those rights, and there is a way to take a recourse on those rights basically. And if the obligations are set up on the organization to adhere to those rights of a consumer or to customer, end customer, then probably it will improve the way the data is being collected and processed in the country. So a stringent, comprehensive privacy law answers or probably is a solution to the problem that you have been talking about. And we have to, it is remain to be seen when the law comes in the India, would that really solve the problem that you are mentioning here?
Thank you so much. That's all for now.
Uh, Thank you, Abhishek. Thank you, Vinayak sir. So, for the sake of time, I would like to stop the Q&A right now. But you can always put your questions in the questionnaire, which I've shared earlier, and we'll definitely try to answer them. Now I would like to take a few minutes to share my experience at the Youth IGF India 2018, where I was a fellow. I'll be just sharing my screen now. Just 1 second. Okay. I hope you can see my screen now.
Yeah.
All right. So as you can see here, this is a post on Internet Society, and this was my experience at the Youth IGF India last year, which was held on 12th October, and it was hosted by Internet Society Delhi chapter. And this was indeed the first Youth Internet Governance Forum in India. So the event was held in Indira Gandhi Technical University for Women, and we were supported by INSIG, ICANN, APNIC, and the Internet Society. So totally there were 15 fellows selected from different parts of India, where we supported the travels, accommodations, and the incidentals. It was indeed my first youth-led initiative in the area of internet governance, and it was just 1 year ago. So the event started with a keynote on the internet governance, and it covered the basic understanding of the internet, where pertinent details were shared, which helped us understand the governance aspect of internet better. This was followed by a multi-stakeholder role play, which was titled "Connecting the Next Billion." Indeed, a great session. And after that, we had an IP Go game, which was conducted by APNIC, where focus was laid on how the internet works. So it is a very interactive game, and we're going to do it this year as well. So stay tuned for that one. Finally, a panel discussion on privacy and safeguards was held by Internet Society, and this allowed the participants to gain a deep understanding of areas related to the privacy over the internet. Finally, the Information Technology Act 2000 (ITA) which includes India's most comprehensive legal provisions that speak to privacy on the internet, was also discussed briefly. So, Abhishek, you might want to check back on that one, following up to your question earlier. And as you can see here, the event provided a full fledged opportunity of gaining an in depth understanding of the internet governance. This was fortunately my first youth IT event, and the knowledge gained from here helped me expand my reach globally to events like APIGA in Seoul and APNIC 48 in Chiang Mai, which was just 2 months ago. And it was indeed here that I had my first exposure to the internet governance. Good news for everybody is that local registrations are also open now. So we'll be sharing all the information across our social media channels and the website. And this year we are going to have actually a much better event, and we'll be having one amazing audience this time as well. I'm just sharing the social media engagement platforms on the chat again, where you can find information about our latest happenings here. And apart from this, I would also like to say that this was our second webinar of the webinar series, and thank you all who could join today. We plan to do another webinar, possibly in next month before the actual event. So we'll be publishing the details shortly on our engagement portals. Thank you all for taking time out of a busy weekend and joining us today. Thank you all. I'd like to drop today. Yes, I'd like to drop now.